Hey everyone, Tim here. Yeah, today we're going to be doing a bit of C programming, and we're going to have a go at a very cool single header file library called Sokol. So let's dive into it. So this is the GitHub page of the Sokol library, and we're going to be playing around with that today. So yeah, it's a very cool library. And one of the cool things about it is that it follows this style of libraries that are becoming quite common in C now. For good reason, because C, the dependency management in C can be quite difficult at times. Trying to install a library, compile it, whereas, follow this link here, but you can read up about the STB style of header files, and basically it's just a single header. So you just include that single file, and that's all you need to do to include the library. So you just include that, you just download the header and include that library, and yeah, so even though there's multiple header files here, each one is an individual library in its own sense. So you only just pick the ones that you want. In this case today, we're going to be using this so-called GFX, which is the main graphics library in this project. And so that's really all you need. But what that does allows you to draw in a cross-platform way, um, draw to a window or to a screen. And yeah, you can see here, this is the core libraries here. So it's a 3D API wrapper, and it wraps GL, which is OpenGL, WebGL, Metal, DirectX, to Microsoft's graphics renderings, and the web GPU. So you can sort of pick your platform, and you can write in a very platform independent way, and yeah, draw some graphics. But to draw graphics, you also need a window. So you need to create a window. And if you could just write the window code in Windows, or you could write using Objective C and write create a Mac window, or Linux, you can open a GTK window, however you like to do it. But or you can use there's some other windowing libraries, GLFW, which allows you to write a window in a cross-platform way. But this actually comes with a nice app framework wrapper, which is called Sokol App. So that will allow you to create a cross-platform window, and it's got some input, so you can read the input from the keyboard, and then from within that window, you can then you'd have your drawing context that you can draw to. There's some other libraries there that can also be useful, but we're just going to start off with these two for a start today. So yeah, let's get into it. So we'll jump back to our code editor. Let's make a folder for the Sokol library, this is our demo app. So I'm just going to make a folder here called Sokol demo, and we'll jump into that. Today we're going to be using NeoVim as our code editor of choice. VI is I've got an alias for VI that goes to NeoVim. So we'll create a main.c file, and I like to put it in the source folder. Okay, so let's open up our main.c, and let's just create a very basic hello world just to get started. I think it's always good just to start off with a standard.i, a hello world, just to prove that you can compile. And we'll just start with absolute basic. So we're just going to start with bare minimum. We're just going to build it up as we go. So let's just say hello Sokol, and we'll create a new line, and we'll return from our main function. And let's I haven't spelled include correct here. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I've got no compile errors there. So we'll let's just open up our terminal here, and I'm using Clang as the compiler. But if you're this demo should work on any platform. So if you're on Windows, or you should be able to use any compiler. If you're on Linux, you should be able to use GCC. Most of these examples should work pretty much the same. So let me know in the comments if it doesn't work, or there's something that's not cross-platform that doesn't work in your case. But yeah, so we're using Clang today. I'm on a Mac. So the output file, we're just going to create a demo file, will be our executable, and our input file is going to be source main.c. So let's just give that a whirl, and looks like we compiled. We'll just ls in directory, we've got our demo. This is our executable file. You can see here that this is an executable. So let's just run our executable and we've got hello Sokol. Okay, very cool. So just to make this a little bit simpler, I'm just going to make a make file. It'll just make our life a little bit easier. So when we have a make file, we actually have the target, which is the target file we're trying to create. So we're trying to create this demo executable. And then on the right-hand side of the target, we have the dependencies. So the demo executable will depend on main.c in the source folder. And then to create that file, we want to do the exact command that we just ran before, which is demo is our output and our input is going to be main.c. Okay, now when you create a make file, it's very important to make sure that this is a tab. So that's a tab character. My editor puts that there automatically when I hit tab, but just make sure that your editor's not replacing this with spaces, otherwise your make file will not be happy. Okay. All right, so we'll save that. Now we go back here. If we just hit make, yeah, there's nothing to do, but if we go make B, which will force the make, we've got our demo. So let's just remove our demo just to make sure this is all working. And we hit make and we get our output and we can run it. So I might actually just put a run as well, which will depend on demo. And we go like that. Let's see if that will work. There we go, that's very nice. Don't like how it puts that little, yeah, that's better. So when you put the @ symbol, make will actually echo out the command that you just ran. So if you put the @ symbol there at the front, we'll just silence it. So I just get the actual output from the program. Okay, so we can just say make run and we get hello Sokol. Very nice. So let's yeah, now the first step is to get this let's set up our app. So let's see if we can create a window. So we'll Sokol app. So what we want this file here. Okay. And yeah, this is the file we want. So the easiest way for me to get it is I just hit this raw and that will actually give us a URL. Okay, so from there, just go across to our shell and we can just wget that. Okay. Oops, what have I done here? I don't know what I've done there. There we go. So wget that URL and we can see we've got our file here. Okay, so what I'm going to do, just to have a little bit of organization, I'm going to have a dependency folder. And I think I'm just going to put that folder into our dependency. So this is just a place where I'm going to include this folder. Okay, so we've got that file now. So the first thing I'm going to do here, let's include that folder. So I want Sokol app.h. Now, first up, it says can't be found. One way we can solve that is just put the actual full path to it like that, and it still doesn't like it. See if our make file likes it. No, it still doesn't like it. It's obviously not searching for it. So what we actually just need to do is pass in here the I flag, which is the search path. Okay, so now it's telling us when we're looking for files, look in this directory for any includes. So the capital I for includes. We run make and then it works. Okay, beautiful. Now the problem is my editor still doesn't like that because it doesn't know about my make file. So the way I like to solve that is I actually create a little variable here called cflags. Okay, and I'm going to make this a cflag. Okay. And then here, I'm going to then include that cflag as an argument. like so. Now that shouldn't change. That still works. But what I'll then do, on my GitHub, I've actually got this little library, this little repo that I've put together, just a lot of shortcuts that I've sort of started to put together. But on here, I've got a make file. I'm just going to steal a little snippet from here. Down the bottom is this compile flags. I'll explain what that is in a sec. So once I go back here, we'll just put this compile flags here. So what this does is we're generating a compile flag. So the I'm using clang-d. Clang-d looks for a compile flags.txt file, and it will use that as its file, as its C flags when it's doing the looking for errors in the source code. So all this does is outputs a little message saying we're generating the compile flags, and then echoes the compile flags and converts the tab characters into new lines, and then outputs it into the compile flags.txt. So let's just run that. So we'll just run make compile flags. Okay, and you can see there it's generated the compile flags. So we go back here and we can see now it's generated the compile flags, and it's just there's a -i depths. So I could have easily just created the compile flags file and then just manually added that there, but then you've got to maintain any flags you have, you've got to maintain in your compile flags and in your makefile, whereas now I can just add them to the makefile, regenerate the compile flags, and everything's kept up to date. So hopefully now if all goes well, I come into my main file, I just hit save and it seems to regenerate the LSP, and I'm getting no errors. So yeah, it's all looking good so far. Right, so we've included the Sokol app. Now let's see if we can yeah, I think let's just start reading up about this Sokol app. So great thing about these signal header files, most of them are very self independent. So you know you can just they're self-documented, all the documents in the file, you know, the entire everything's in the file. So you can just sort of read through the file. So the first thing it says you need to define the Sokol implementation or Sokol app implementation. So we need to define that before we actually include the file. So let's just do that. Okay, so let's define Sokol implementation. And yeah, that looks like we're getting some errors now. So let's that's kind of what we wanted. So let's just make that and let's see, have a look at some of our errors. Right, so most of these errors here, so let's have a look. So this is, if you have a project Objective-C, this looks like Objective-C because I'm on a Mac. So I'm getting errors now with my Objective-C. So the problem with this is that I need to sort of include some of the Mac stuff to sort of so it can compile the Objective-C. So the way I figured out how to do this is back on the Sokol library. See if I can find it. There is a very cool example or project called Sokol GP, which is 2D graphics library. Now on here, they have a makefile, and the makefile's got some very cool stuff in it. So yeah, in this package, this make we'll probably yeah use some of this stuff in this makefile because there's some very good stuff in here. So this is very platform specific stuff. So we kind of, depending on which platform we're going to include all the sort of the right libraries that we need for that platform. So you can see here we've got, if we're on Windows, we need to include all these libraries, and we'll use this compiler. If we're on Linux, we're going to include these flags and these libraries. And if we're on Mac, we need to include these things. So this is sort of our missing piece here because I'm on Mac. But if you're on Linux, you know, go and put these bits in, try it out, let me know if it works. Or, you know, you can create a web version, or you can also create a Windows version. So what we probably end up doing is probably just using most of this code and just include that in our make file to make it very specific. But like I just want to keep it very simple at this stage and just include the absolute bare minimum stuff that I need for it to compile. But like if you're trying to create this and distribute it across multiple platforms, obviously, yeah, you'd want to include um, probably a fair bit of this make file, probably from like all of this stuff right through to the platform bit, and then potentially this stuff at the top here because there's some really good stuff at the top. But for now, just to keep it simple, I'm just going to take this Mac stuff. I think it's very good just to have it keep stuff simple at the start, so you sort of can control and you understand what's going on. So you can see here what we're doing here. We're including some libraries, so we're including the Cocoa library, Quartz core library, the Metal and the Metal Kit frameworks, and we're telling our compiler that we're actually using Objective C. From experience, I don't think I need that extra bit there, so I'm just going to remove that. Okay, and so you can, when we're adding this to our compile flag, you can see that this is actually an append. So we're appending the compile flags here. So we start off with an empty compile flags, we append this, and then we can append some more here. So let's just try that for a start. Yeah, we're still getting some errors. So what we need to do is include the libraries as well into our compile target. Okay, so let's just scroll up, have a look what our errors are now. Yeah, so we need to tell Sokol what graphics library we're using. So it says, unknown, must be Metal or GL Core. So we're either going to use OpenGL or Metal. So if we go back to our make file here, you can see that if it was Mac, I think it's down here. If the backend is Mac, it says the backend will be Metal, and then down here we've got to include this defs Sokol Metal. So let's just include that bit as well. And once again, if you're not on a Mac and you want to use OpenGL, or even if you're on a Mac and you just want to use OpenGL, you can use OpenGL Core, or if you want to use the web or Windows versions, yeah, just change this accordingly. So we're going to just take that little bit of code there as well. So we'll just put our definitions there. Now what I'm going to do is actually, just so this works with my compile flags, I want to just append the defs to the C flags. Okay, so then this metal will get added to the defs, definitions, and then definitions will get appended to the C flag. So hopefully that will just work. So let's make that. And that looks a lot better, but we've got another little issue there. So let's just regenerate our compile flags first and just see whether that actually, yeah, it did. So you can see they're now compile flags and got the depths. We're saying we're compiled with the Objective-C compiler because we're using the Apple windowing system, and we're using Sokol Metal. So we're defining Sokol Metal in our library. Okay, so that's looking quite good. Yeah, we've got rid of most errors. We've now just got this conflicting main, so which is the same error we're getting here, conflicting main. So let's go back here and let's continue reading through our Sokol app. And yeah, so we've read through this. It says we're going to define one of these, so we've defined Sokol Metal. But once again, if you're doing this on a different platform, define your appropriate platform. Just going to zoom out on this a little bit. So yeah, I don't think any of these are necessary. Debug, so if we want debug, we don't want any of that at this stage. Some platform specific stuff here. Okay, so here we go. So link with the following system library. So we're on Mac, so we need to link with, for Metal, Coca, Quartz, Metal, and Metal Kit. So we've linked with those libraries. So that's all looking good. So if you're not sure how to see what we're actually linking with, we see make dry run. Yeah, you can see our exact command that we're running. So Clang, and we're linking with these frameworks. Okay, so that's quite good. Okay, so yeah, there's some good stuff here. Right, Sokol main. So this is what we need to do here. So with Sokol app, we actually add this Sokol main is what we're missing. Right. So there's a bit of an example there of how to add that. So we can just actually just copy that bit of code there. And we can just put that into our program here. So I'm just going to, oh no, not there. So yeah, with Sokol app, we actually don't define our own main. Sokol actually defines it in the app header. So all we need to define is our Sokol main. So we can actually remove this main function now, but I'm still on our print line there just to make sure that that works. So we actually don't need this main function anymore, but we have this Sokol main function. Okay, and print, and then we return this Sokol app description. So what that is, let's just remove some of these errors, right? So this defines the app description. So we've got a window, so 640 by 480. I think that's height, that seems quite reasonable. And then we need to define these functions, right? So my init function. So we need to define our own callback basically for an init function. So let's just define a void function for that. And we can just come in here and change that to our init. Okay. And we need a frame function. So let's call this frame. We need a cleanup function. And we also need an event function. Event. Okay, so I'm just going to define all these functions up the top here. So the void cleanup. And we need a event. Pretty sure the event function takes an argument, but I'm just going to make it void for now, and I'm sure the compiler will tell me what I've done wrong. And the last one is our frame function. So this will get called every frame. And this is where we can start putting some drawing actions. Okay, so we've defined our callbacks. Yeah, now if I go into the cleanup, oh, here we go. Here's our definition of our app description. So you can actually see all the different parameters we can have in here. There's a few different options here to make the app full screen, clipboard, lots of different options we can set, but we're not really interested in them at the moment, but we are interested in these callbacks. So yeah, the event callback has to take this constant event object, or this constant event struct, sorry, or pointer it is. So yeah, let's go and add that to our event function so the signatures match. Okay, so we've got an event, a frame, and init, and a cleanup. So yeah, that all looks pretty good. Let's just run that and see how we go. Okay, that worked. We're at compiling. Now we hit make run, and look at that, we have a window. Wow. So there's our little window, and yeah, awesome. All right, so yeah, let's just see what else we've got in this Sokol app. So we were just looking through here. We've created our main function. We can include a logger, so we can use the Sokol log package to do some logging, but we're not going to worry about that for now. Yeah, these are our callbacks. So we've added all our callbacks. We've got an event callback. And yeah, we can, with different functions to get window height and width. Yeah, this all looks pretty good. So yeah, all right. Well, yeah, that's about it for the setup of the app. Next time, I think what we're going to try and do is just, I want to have a real quick shortcut keyboard where I just hit escape and that'll just close that window, and that just allows me to sort of run make run, and then I can quickly get out of it. So yeah, in the next video, we'll have a go at that. Okay, I'll see you then.